to have Sandy with us today. A very warm welcome to you, Sandy, to our virtual GI event. Sandy is the Associate Director for ETS Global Client Relations, been for over 10 years, and she's responsible for our outreach and communications in the UK and Ireland, and is working very closely with institutions of higher education and further education, education advisors, government departments, and English language teachers. So she's the one who can really guide you on how to really apply to UK with confidence. So over to you, Sandy. While we get your presentation up, you just go ahead and address our audience. Okay?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you very much for the warm introduction. So thank you everybody for joining the session this afternoon. Before I go on and tell you more about how you can actually use TOEFL IBT scores to take you to the UK, I thought it would be really useful for those of you who are not familiar to really understand how it's actually possible, because there is a myth that TOEFL scores are not accepted in certain countries, including the UK, which I represent. And actually, indeed, it is a myth. TOEFL scores are accepted, are welcomed by all UK universities. So please bear that in mind. I also want to give you further reassurance that UK universities welcome TOEFL IBT scores. These are just some testimonials from universities that encourage applicants from all over the world to consider a variety of English language tests, which they promote as well, and that includes TOEFL IBT. Many of these universities also were able to share some top tips that you should perhaps bear in mind before beginning the journey of undertaking an English language test. And I guess the main takeaway from this is practice, 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 and start early, and learn English in a manner where it's not just to pass the English language test, it's actually to succeed whilst you're at university. So the universities that I've just profiled are obviously some. Even the universities that are engaging with the forum this week all accept TOEFL scores. However, some of you may still have some doubt in your minds and think, well, that's fair enough, but you're not an approved Home Office test, you're not a CELT. Well, let me shed some light on that. Universities in the UK are allowed to assess English by using their own kind of methods of assessing proficiency. So long as a student that's applying, which could be yourselves, is applying for degree level and above. So the Home Office does allow a UK university, so it has to be a university, not a college, to assess English in their own manner. So if you look at the Home Office website, you will clearly see that that CELT is required for certain courses, but those of you that are on this seminar that want to come and study at degree level, you can clearly see knowledge of English required is not a CELT. So it's got to be an assessment that measures all 4 skills that obviously is accepted by the UK university, and TOEFL is one of those. Universities are aware that there can be some confusion about which test an applicant has to take. So as well as obviously the wording that I just shared with you that's on the Home Office website, UK universities also make that very clear on their own websites, that not only do they accept certain tests and they list those, they also remind you and your agents that a CELT is not required for degree level and above, because they as an institution have the ability to assess your proficiency. They're just things to bear in mind. However, you must remember that the university has its own English language requirements. So if you do choose to take the TOEFL IBT test, you need to ensure that you will meet the university's minimum speaking, reading, writing, listening requirements and the total score. This is just a list of some. However, you also must meet the Home Office's minimum English language requirements, which are as follows for TOEFL IBT. So you can see that it's quite prescriptive in terms of what they ask for each subsection, and then you've got a total score. So for those of you who are not as familiar with the TOEFL scores, are more familiar with, let's say, IELTS, the 72 is the equivalent of a 5.5. I now want to start to tell you a bit about the TOEFL IBT test, the format, what resources are available for you, and also where it can be taken. So you may be wondering, well, and it's right, there are so many tests to choose from. Why take TOEFL? And there's lots of reasons I can tell you about why you should take TOEFL, but I'm just going to pick out two. One of which is that the way the scores are marked. So if you were to take the test, one individual does not mark your entire test, let alone one section. We use multiple markers to mark each section of the test, and we also want to ensure that we are being fair and unbiased. So the test centres do not mark your test. It's done independently through a centralised scoring system. The other, point to bear in mind, and that really sets TOEFL apart from other English language tests, is it really does prepare you for what life is going to be like in an academic environment. So often we're told that the test is quite difficult, it's quite challenging because it's very academic. Well, to be perfectly frank with you, that is what you will be faced with in a university environment, whether it be in the UK or whether it be in Australia or whether it be in Canada. So the tasks that you're presented with in the reading section or the speaking section are very similar and in line with what you would expect at a university. Therefore, if you're comfortable with that, you will succeed whilst you're actually at the institution. So what is the test? What's the format? Now you'll see there's two columns here. Hopefully you can see the slides. And within the two columns on the far right are the new changes we've made. We've spent a lot of money and time, my colleagues, in ensuring that we make as many enhancements to the test as possible so that it's a better test experience for you as a test taker. Let's face it, it's a stressful time taking any kind of test or any type of exam. Therefore, we want to make it better for you. So what have we changed? We have changed everything apart from the speaking section. When I say changed, we have removed tasks from the speaking, from the listening and the reading, and the number of questions. That does not mean that we have compromised the quality or validity or the reliability of the test in any way. So what other enhancements have we made to make it better for you, the test taker? So we understand that you have to meet deadlines. We also understand that you may not meet the institution requirements. Therefore, not only is it important for us to get you results out quickly, which we now do, 6 days, bearing in mind the way we mark as well, which can take some time. 6 days is quite quick because we're not just using a machine. The other point to bear in mind is if you do have to retake because you've not met that requirement, you don't have to wait 12 days. You can retake the test again in 3 days. Other changes that we've made to make the process much more better for you is the fact that the test is shorter. We can run more afternoon sessions as well. Therefore, that helps with capacity. Especially now with the pandemic, that's really helpful that we're able to actually lay on those extra sessions. We understand and have listened to the challenges that were faced by students when registering, and we again have spent a lot of time and invested in this. Therefore, it is a much more user-friendly registration process. You can register quite quickly, literally 2 days up to the test date. And again, being more flexible in terms of charges and changes that we've made, which really will be more suitable to you and the deadlines that you've got to meet. Another enhancement that we've made, which is unique to TOEFL IBT, is a service called My Best Scores. This is where you may have taken the test more than once. because you've not met the requirements. And often it can be one requirement or two requirements that you've just missed. And what My Best allows you to do is draw scores from the two different administrations, that's if you took it twice, and combine those scores and present them as My Best scores. So for example, if I took the test last month and I was able to meet the university's speaking and writing requirements, but not reading and listening, I took the test again this month and I was able to meet all four requirements. I can take the speaking and the writing from last month and the listening and reading from this month, combine them and present them as My Best scores, so long as they are scores from within a 2-year window. And most universities are accepting those. What else have we done? We've introduced an element of AI to our speaking section of our test. What that actually now means is we're not just using humans. We will obviously continue to use humans to mark each part of the speaking section, but we will also integrate that by applying AI, which we already do with our writing section. I would urge any of you that are considering taking IBT to go and visit our website and download as much freely available, which there is a lot of, test prep, and also visit my colleagues at the kiosk. One thing I forgot to point out at the beginning of this session was that please do post questions, which we will come to, on the chat facility, or any clarifications that you may need in terms of what I've been saying so far. So I really encourage you to post questions, but also visit our kiosk and also go onto our website for free test prep. So unfortunately, with the pandemic, we are unable to offer IBT testing across India. However, I'm delighted to tell you that we are running IBT testing across 40 test centres. And we've listed the locations here. And again, we want to continue to be able to resume testing pretty much everywhere, but obviously a lot of this is out of our hands. What's really important for us is the safety of our test takers. That's paramount. That leads me really nicely onto the TOEFL IBT special home edition test, which is exactly the same as the IBT. So this isn't a different test. This is exactly the same format as IBT, which I just described earlier in the slides. But as a result of the pandemic, this is what we are offering and have been offering since March to students globally, the opportunity to still take the TOEFL IBT test, meet their deadlines, and the difference is that it's taken at home as opposed to at a test centre. And I'll talk you through a bit more in terms of what the process is, what the requirements are. But this will continue to be offered until we are able to safely resume testing in every city and location where normally we would offer IBT testing. So again, just to reiterate, there is no difference between the at-home, special at-home edition and the regular IBT. And again, any questions on this, post them on the chat forum, or my colleagues do have a TOEFL ask us. So the only difference is the way the test is delivered. And for those of you who have taken an IBT test will notice that with the at-home test, despite the delivery being at home, all of the security protocols are exactly the same. You will actually have a live human proctor throughout the 3 hours of the actual test. And the entire test is actually taped, and then that is actually shared with institutions that you choose to send your scores to. Testing is available all the time. We're very, very flexible, and we understand you've got deadlines to meet, and the registration page offers timings and dates. What I really would like to stress is with the at-home test, and again, you can take that, or if IBT is available, you can take that. You must ensure that you visit the link at the bottom of this page and check that you have got all the requirements in place. We want to make sure that you are able to take this test successfully. And the IT requirements aren't onerous, but you still need to make sure that you've got not only the environment set up, which is where you're taking the test, the room, but you've got the IT requirements set up. And these are the IT requirements. So they're all equally important, and you can use a Mac as well. The microphone, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the TOEFL test, is that the speaking component is assessed. You speak into a microphone on the same day at the same time. So reading, writing, speaking, listening, all assessed at the same time. The camera is also important because of the invigilating and the checking of ID, and the proctor may also ask you to, well, actually will ask you to show them the room where you're taking the test, so we can ensure that the environment requirements have been adhered to. So I urge you again, if the IBT regular test is not available in your city, or you're not able to get a registration date that suits you, you have got the ability to take the at-home test so long as you meet the requirements. So I also would like to get you to not only visit our kiosk if you're interested, but also contact us for any more information so that we can actually support you. We have a number of amazing free test prep products that we can also make you aware of. So I'd like to kind of wrap this up by just emphasizing again that should you decide to take the TOEFL test, your scores will be accepted for study in the UK. They will be accepted for Tier 4 degree level and above by the Home Office. And please do visit our kiosk, because we also are offering, which is also available on our website, free tests as well, test prep. So it's always useful, whichever test you're taking, take the practice test, because the practice test will allow you to get a gauge as to where you are right now. You know, how far off are you from that speaking, reading, listening, or writing score before you go and actually spend money and take the actual test, so the practice test, and you can get that from the kiosk. We are also today offering a discounted TOEFL test voucher as well, which you can also contact my colleagues and they'll be delighted to help you. So I think that really wraps up what I wanted to share with you, and perhaps we can have a look at any questions that we've got through, and I can see there's quite a few. So okay, I am being asked about Germany and Canada. Okay, about the TOEFL validity. Again, as far as I know, universities in both of those countries do accept the TOEFL test. You just have to check the institution in terms of what their requirements are. But as far as I know, it is valid in those countries. I've been asked about the discounted coupon. So the discounted coupon will have to be, you will have to contact my colleagues actually at the kiosk who are there today, and they can actually offer this to you. We have got time for other questions. Any clarifications anyone needs in terms of what I've said? I guess I may have some questions for you. I mean, those that are on the call, how, you know, are you thinking at the moment of coming to the UK? If so, what are the main challenges for you? Are most of you undecided as to where you're going to go and study, or are you thinking of deferring? We still have time. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer or try to answer them. You're all very quiet compared to the students I had last week.
Andy, I think we have some questions over here.
Okay.
IELTS versus TOEFL, how do they compare? And Aryan is trying to understand what is a good score in TOEFL exam to study abroad.
Okay, so let me just start with the last question first, because that's quite straightforward. To study abroad in any English-speaking country, the institution decides what the TOEFL score should be. But most, whether they're Ivy League universities in the US or the Group of 8 in Australia or the Russell Group in the UK, you are looking at a total score of 100 plus, more or less. However, it also depends on the course you are studying, whether it's an undergraduate or whether it's a postgraduate. So there are factors to take into account. The score requirement is set by the level of the course and obviously the subject matter. So best thing always to do is look at the university website in terms of the requirements. The first question, the differences. There are a number of differences, and some tests suit some students and some tests suit others. So the main 4 differences I always talk about, having taken both tests, are that the way the skills are assessed. Okay, so we do not have a face-to-face speaking test, and that's mainly due to the fact that we feel as an organisation that to ensure that you're being fair and truly objective and unbiased, that there should be no human interaction. So that's the first thing. The second difference is that the way we mark our test, it's marked by different people, and we use multiple markers so that again, we are being fair and objective. And we remove the invigilating process from the marking process. So those people that may be invigilating your TOEFL IBT exam will never be marking your test. And obviously the score scale is very, very different because we measure each of the skills very differently. So you can't really compare the scores. And there's often a disparity between TOEFL and IELTS scores when universities are setting them because of our 0 to 120 and their 0 to 9 score band. I would say they are the main thing, and also the item types are different as well. We don't there is no kind of general assessment of general English. It is all academic. So when you're sat there taking the speaking assessment, you're not going to just be speaking in the TOEFL IBT test. You will be reading from the screen. You will be listening from the headset. So the integrated skills also stands the test apart from other English language tests, including IELTS. So I would say they're the main differences.
The question is, what is the validity of TOEFL in Canada?
So if I'm not misunderstanding that question, do they mean the validity as in the scores are valid for 2 years, or do they mean if it's accepted? Is the person asking if it's accepted?
They're asking for the validity, I think 2 years you mentioned, right?
Yes. Throughout the world, it's 2 years for TOEFL, absolutely 2 years. And universities, that's a standard for most universities in English-speaking countries, is 2 years. And as I said, please do visit our kiosk. My colleagues Siddharth and Ashraf will be more than happy to help you. And as there are no more questions, even we've got a minute to go, I want to thank you once again for showing interest in the TOEFL IBT test, and I wish you all the best in whatever path you take, and please stay safe and healthy during this pandemic, and look forward to engaging with you in the future.
Thank you so much for your time, Sandy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.